This is Lesson 8 in our study of Proverbs 31. I'm glad you've joined us for another look into Moxy's wardrobe. She's giving us such great insight into what it takes to be the example of a woman who is a force of character, determination, courage, and nerve. Again, in this lesson, there's just one descriptive that I want to pull off the page, and it is this: dignity. But taking a look back, I got to ask the question, how you doing with resting? Resting is when we stop all those voices, we turn off the chaos, and we quiet ourselves and we listen. It is so important that God Himself did it after creation. And it also made that top 10 list of things that we should be doing in our life. Keeping the Sabbath day holy. Resting. It's essential, it's important, it doesn't come natural, and even once you get it in place, so many things come up to try and take that time away. But we've got to keep it on the top of our priority list. Did you check out any sunrises this past week? Did you begin your day just a little bit earlier? I hope so. Remember, there's power in those early hours. There's magic that happens. But we've got to be awake for it. We've got to be alert. We've got to be ready. And the only way to do that is if we understand that we have to respect time, that our commitments are in order and our priorities are right. When we put those three things together, we automatically are living a very ordered life. And an ordered life is flexible, it's relaxed, it's productive, and most of all, it is desirable. That takes us to the beginning of our 8th lesson. This one is entitled Servants. And our verse says this: She gives food to her household and an allotted share to her maidens. Now, in the first part of the verse, she gives food to her household. I think we've already got that covered because we are ships going from port to port. So we've got the household food supply chain taken care of. It's the second part of the verse, and an allotted share to her maidens. In other words, she cares for her servants. Now, servants isn't a word that we use very frequently. And to be honest, if I were to ask you, how many servants do you have? You'd probably look at me and laugh and say, well, someday it would be nice to have a few. When we think about servants, we can't help but think about Downton Abbey. We've all come to love those servants. I have that many, don't you? And I put them all in the basement of my little California bungalow. I'm sure you do the same. But in all reality, who are our servants? In our day and time, who would qualify as servants? I started really thinking about this question. And I started looking at the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis very differently and in a new light. Because when I think about taking care of my servants, suddenly the definition of servants became the woman who checks me out at the grocery store, and the young kid who stands at the end and puts my groceries in a bag, the college student who's filling the shelves with the food that I need to put in the cart. It's the teacher who spends 8 hours a day with my grandchildren, and the woman who takes my dry cleaning every week, knows me by name, doesn't even ask how I want them done any longer. It's the young gentleman who stands at the end of the table and takes my order dutifully and serves me my food. And it's the poor person on the other end of the phone when I need to call for customer service. And it's also that great barista who hands me my latte. These are my modern day servants. How do I treat them? How do I interact with them? You know, sometimes we can also be the servants. And I think when we find ourselves on the end of being the servant, we can look at this question a little differently. I said earlier that I had managed a women's clothing store for a couple of years, and it was such a learning experience just watching women But during that time, my little store had the opportunity to do several fashion shows, and we loved doing them. We would do them for nonprofit organizations who were doing lunches, and they just needed some fillers, some activity. So they would send us 4 to 10 models, all shapes and sizes and ages, and we would dress them in whatever was the current line in the store. And it was always such great fun. The women would practice, and they would have 2 or 3 changes of clothes. And on the first time they walked down the runway, through the audience, everyone was very careful, very reverent, very respectful. By the second time, they were loosened up a little bit. A few of them would start sashaying through and laugh, and arms would start waving a little bit more. And by the third time, someone inevitably would start doing the can-can. They were great. They were great fun, and my team learned to absolutely love doing them. So when we got the offer to do it for a large church, for a Mother's Day luncheon, we jumped on it. And my team was very experienced in doing these, so I wasn't paying too close of attention. And the first couple people had come in for their fittings, and I hadn't been there. When I got back into the store on this particular day, we had 2 or 3 more fittings scheduled for these models. And all of the women that were working that day said, "Jeannie, you can do those." I said, "Really? Don't you want to do them?" "No." "Well, why not? Do we have a problem?" And they looked at each other and they looked at me and they said, "This is the worst group of women we've ever dealt with. They're horrible. They're disrespectful. They're rude. They're arrogant." And I thought, oh, no, this is not a good thing. I said, "All right, I'll take care of it." And they were right. Within 30 seconds of the first fitting, walking through the door, I thought, this is a group of women I don't want to be a part of. I don't want to serve, and I would rather them not even be in my store. Well, we got through the day, and for the next couple days, I had interactions with my own team, and I think what broke my heart the most is that the group of women that I worked with all said, "I would never go to that church. There's nothing about that church that I would ever want to be a part of." They were experiencing being treated poorly as servants. And what was the worst is that it came from a church organization. They had been treated royally by other organizations, but not this group of women. This takes me back to our lesson 5. She responds with good and not evil all the days of her life. How do we respond to the women at the grocery store, and the kid who's putting our groceries in the bag, and the customer service person who didn't do you wrong? They're just the one answering the telephone when you have to call and get something fixed. How do we treat them? The waiter, when our food isn't right, do we blame him? He didn't make it. When we leave a restaurant, when we leave a place, do we leave it in a better condition than when we arrived? How are we when we tip our servers? All of those things are responding with good and not evil. This isn't responding simply to our spouse or to our children, to our family members. It's to the strangers. It's to the people who are giving us a service. They are our servants. So we ask the question again, how many servants do you have? My answer is this: servants, I have many. And I am determined to treat them with dignity, with respect. I believe that's how Moxy made it through. I believe she was a woman that when she walked through the doors, people didn't cringe. They welcomed her with open arms. They couldn't wait for her to come back. There's a great scene from the movie Hello, Dolly, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. And Hello, Dolly, Dolly is getting ready to come back to a restaurant that she hasn't been to for years. And when the servers hear that she is coming, they break out into a full-fledged dance because she's coming to eat. They're going to have the opportunity to serve her. Think of your day. Think of the places that you go. Think of the people that you interact with, the total strangers who, for some reason, for some moment in your life, are going to serve you. How do you respond to them? How do you treat them? How do you tip them? How do you react to them? Servants, I have many, and it is my goal to treat them with dignity and respect and honor and gratitude that they are there to serve me. My prayer I leave with you this week is this: Gracious King, open our eyes to the needs and lives of those who serve us every day. Teach us to be gracious in our interactions. Remind us to show our gratefulness for their service to us. Nudge us when we become arrogant and demanding. Help us to be generous with our time and our money. Teach us to be servants, to meet the needs of others and open our heart to the needs of those who serve us. Thank you for joining me in Lesson 8. This is a short lesson, but boy, it has impacted my life. This is a garment that I envision as crisp. It lightens up a room. It brightens people's day and it makes friends of total strangers. It listens to the servant's heart and it gives generously. It is a very important part of Moxy's wardrobe. And as we put it on, we become women clothed in strength and dignity, and we can laugh without fear of the future. If you haven't already contacted me, please take the time to do so. I would love to hear about you and your Moxy journey. I would love to hear about your servant experiences and your service experiences. You can connect through my blog at jeanniegb.com or email me directly at moxyasilverthread.com. I am so looking forward to Lesson 9.